Yeni bir şeyler anlatabilmek umuduyla başladığımız her haftayı maalesef birbirinin aynı cümlelerle kapatıyoruz her seferinde. Öyle ki bu karanlık tabloda ülkedeki ifade özgürlüğünün hal ve gidişi açısından her hafta bir öncekini aratıyor adeta. Ülke bir türlü uyanılamayan bir kabus içerisinde gibi. Gelinen noktada hakikat istemek bile demir parmaklıklar ardına girdi.
The Turkish Medical Association, which has been the target of the government with every statement it made, from calling for peace to objections and suggestions regarding public health problems, once again became the target of President Erdogan and the junior partner of the government, Nationalist Movement Party's leader, Bahçeli. Following her allegations that Turkey used chemical weapons in cross-border military operations, Erdogan targeted Turkish Medical Association President Professor Şebnem Korur Fincancı and said the judiciary has taken action regarding the Turkish Medical Association president. Steps will be taken regarding both this person and this institution. Then, Bahçeli wanted the Turkish Medical Association to be shut down and the president to be denaturalized.
Şebnem Korur Fincancı, who was detained within the scope of the investigation launched immediately after the statements of the government, was arrested by the Criminal Judicature of Peace, to which she was transferred on charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization. The Ankara Chief Public Prosecutor's Office also demanded that Fincancı be dismissed from the Turkish Medical Association Central Council presidency together with the other Central Council members. The case will be heard at the Ankara 31st Civil Court of First Instance.
As part of an investigation conducted by the Ankara Chief Public Prosecutor's Office, the Ankara office of the Mesopotamia Agency was raided. Within the scope of the investigation, in which the Ankara Second Criminal Judicature of Peace has decided to ban journalists from meeting with their lawyers and restrict the file for 24 hours, the police raided the homes of Mesopotamia Agency and Jin News reporters in Istanbul, Ankara, Diyarbakır, Urfa, Mardin and Van. 11 journalists were detained. In the statement made by the Ankara Security Directorate regarding the detentions, news agencies were targeted and it was claimed that the journalists conducted organizational activities and made news with content that incites the public to hatred and enmity. Semo Ağgöz, one of the detained journalists and the mother of a 48-day-old baby, was released on the condition of house arrest, while 10 journalists, whose detainment periods were extended twice, were taken to the Ankara courthouse 4 days later. As our program was being prepared for broadcast, the journalists were testifying.
The Kadıköy District Governorate in Istanbul banned a protest organized regarding the detainment of Turkish Medical Association President Şebnem Korur Fincancı and 11 journalists on the grounds that it would disrupt public order and make propaganda for a terrorist organization. The police battered 57 people and detained them.
Turkish Medical Association Central Council members, professional organization representatives and journalists were prevented from entering the courthouse after they arrived at the Ankara courthouse to follow the prosecution process of Turkish Medical Association President Professor Şebnem Korur Fincancı after she was detained due to her scientific evaluations on the allegations of the use of chemical weapons. 5 professional union and organization representatives were beaten by the police in front of the courthouse and were detained.
A lawsuit was filed against writer Gökhan Yavuzer because of his article titled The Relationship Between Art and Power, published on the Gazete Davul website on January 31st, 2021. The indictment prepared by the Şanlıurfa Chief Public Prosecutor's Office. Yavuzer was charged with public incitement to hatred and hostility or denigration.
The Izmir Chief Public Prosecutor's Office launched an investigation against lawyer Aryan Turan after she chanted the slogan Jin Jiyan Azadi, Women, Life and Freedom, to commemorate Mahsa Amini, who was murdered by the morality police in Iran, and after she brought forward the allegations that the Turkish armed forces used chemical weapons in cross-border operations during her speech on behalf of the Lawyers for Freedom Association at the Izmir Bar Association's Ordinary General Assembly meeting.
The Istanbul Chief Public Prosecutor's Office has decided to confiscate 4 issues of the Atılım weekly newspaper, claiming that propaganda was made for a terrorist organization through news and articles about the allegation on the use of chemical weapons.
In order to prevent protests against the mining disaster, which caused the deaths of 41 workers, the Bartın Governorate banned entrances to the Amasra district, where the explosion took place, for 3 days. The governorate cited protection of public safety as the reason for the ban.
The protest organized in Kadıköy district of Istanbul by the Iranian women living in Turkey for Mahsa Amini, who was murdered by the morality police of Iran, was prevented by police who claimed that the government did not allow the statement on the grounds of security.
The Şanlıurfa Governorate banned all kinds of protests and events such as meetings, press statements, rallies, leaflet distributions in the province for 15 days between October 23rd and November 6th. The governorate claimed as the justification for the ban that calls were made to create public opinion against military operations carried out across borders, aiming to disrupt public order.
The Istanbul 10th Criminal Judicature of Peace issued an access block against the column written by Yeni Çağ Daily writer Murat Ağırel, as well as against the related social media posts and news items on the company belonging to Justice and Development Party Erzurum MP Zehra Taşkesenoğlu, who came to agenda with the allegation of criminal organization leader Sedat Peker on corruption and bribery networks.
The Izmir 6th Criminal Judicature of Peace issued an access block against the news published in Gazete Duvar, Bir Gün and Halk TV on the grounds of violation of personal rights. The news in question were regarding the criminal complaint made with the allegation that there were 11 more electors in the home address of Izmir Torbalı Deputy Mayor of the Justice and Development Party, Yunus Değer, during the local elections on March 31st, 2019.
Concert of musician Edip Akbayram, organized in the Black Sea Ereğli district on the occasion of October 29 Republic Day, was cancelled by the district government in line with the decision of Zonguldak Governorate, citing the mine disaster in Amasra.
The Istanbul Anatolian 4th Criminal Judicature of Peace issued an access block against 64 content, including 50 news items, 9 Ekşi Sözlük entries, and 5 YouTube videos on the grounds of violation of personal rights. The content in question was on Yasin Ekrem Serim, the son of President Erdogan's advisor Mahsut Serim, being appointed as the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs.
The Istanbul Anatolian 2nd Criminal Judicature of Peace issued an access block against 139 news items and social media content regarding the claims of criminal organization leader Sedat Peker on Police Chief Ekrem Eren Ermiş asking for a bribe and being dismissed from profession. With the same decree, news on Ermiş being arrested on charges of asking money from drug smugglers in Van, and all other content including his name were blocked from access as well.
The Independent Communication Network has published the July, August and September 2022 Media Monitoring Report. According to the report, at least 126 journalists and media representatives stood trial on various charges, including making propaganda for a terrorist organization and terrorist organization membership in the 3-month period. At least 11 journalists and cartoonists were prosecuted for insulting Erdogan. At least 22 journalists have been named in criminal cases on charges of insulting a public official and insult. At least 12 media representatives, following protests, face prosecutions for violating the law in meetings and demonstrations or resisting the police. Criminal Judicatures of Peace also blocked access to at least 198 online news and journalistic content. The Radio and Television Supreme Council imposed an administrative fine of 342,328 Turkish liras in total against television organizations for their news and broadcasts, and decided to suspend the program Sözüm Var, which was broadcast on Halk TV 3 times.
Böyle bir haftanın adliye mesaisi de hep bildiğimiz gibi oldu. İşte görülen ifade özgürlüğü davalarından seçtiklerimiz.
Pir Sultan Abdal Cultural Association's founding chairman Murtaza Demir was convicted of insulting Erdogan for his article titled "Take Your Imam and Go," which he wrote after the Keçeci Baba Lodge in Tokat was turned into a mosque. Demir, who was tried at the Istanbul 9th Criminal Court of First Instance, was acquitted of the charge of inciting the people to hatred and enmity, while his prison sentence of 1 year, 2 months and 17 days on the charge of insulting the president was deferred.
The first hearing of the lawsuit filed against 4 students who participated in the protest organized on January 11, 2022 in Kadıköy district of Istanbul, was held at Istanbul Anatolian 63rd Criminal Court of First Instance for insulting the president. The protest was for Enes Kara, a student of Fırat University Faculty of Medicine who committed suicide and left behind a video in which he talked about the pressure and future concerns he suffered in the community house in Elazığ. The students were charged due to banners they held which stated "Shut down the sect dormitories" and "Enes's murder is the palace order." The case will continue on November 21.
The trial of Gülsüm Elvan and Sami Elvan, the parents of 16-year-old Berkin Elvan, who lost his life with a tear gas shell fired by the police during the Gezi Park protests, continued at the Istanbul 43rd Criminal Court of First Instance for the statements they made in front of the courthouse following the lawsuit filed regarding the death of their children. The trial of the Elvan family, accused of insulting the president, will continue on March 16th.
Journalist Ismail Arı, who was charged with unlawfully obtaining and disseminating personal data, was sentenced to 2 years in prison due to the news published in Bir Gün Daily on October 6, 2020, with the title "Bir Gün reached the documents of the fines imposed on President and General Manager of Red Crescent." The Istanbul 58 Criminal Court of First Instance deferred the announcement of the verdict.
The trial of 11 peace mothers, as well as journalists İrfan Tunçelik and Ümit Turhan Coşkun, who were detained in the protests held in front of Bakırköy Women's Closed Prison regarding the hunger strikes that continued in prisons in 2019, continued at the Istanbul 23rd Assize Court on charges of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations number 2911 and committing crimes on behalf of a terrorist organization without membership. The next hearing of the case was scheduled for February 7th.
The trial of journalist Metin Yoksu, who was charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to the taking a photo at the funeral of those who lost their lives in Suruç massacre and sharing in the social media, started at the Istanbul 23rd Assize Court. In the opinion on the merits, the prosecutor's office requested for Yoksu to be sentenced, and the hearing was adjourned to April 18.
The trial of journalists Canan Coşkun and Barış Pehlivan started at the Istanbul 34th Assize Court on the charge of targeting those who took part in the fight against terrorism because of their news on the lawsuit filed against the Religious Scholars Assistance and Solidarity Association members and administrators on charges of terrorist organization membership and aiding a terrorist organization for giving sermons in Kurdish. In the lawsuit filed upon the complaint of Judge Akın Güllek, who was appointed as the Deputy Minister of Justice, a claim of recusation was made because the president of the court, Zafer Daşkın, had previously issued an arrest warrant against journalist Pehlivan in another file. The next hearing will be held on January 17th.
The lawsuit filed against Yeni Yaşam Daily's former managing editor İnci Aydın at the Aydın Second Assize Court following the complaint of Lieutenant General Musa Citil on the charge of targeting those who part in the fight against terrorism because of the article written by People's Democratic Party MP and Women's Assembly spokesperson Ayşe Acar Başaran, which was published in the women's supplement of the newspaper, was concluded with acquittal.
The trial of journalists Aziz Oruç and Ersin Çaksu continued at the Istanbul Second Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the state on the grounds of news items and columns published in previously shut down Özgürlükçü Demokrasi Daily between the dates October 21st and November 1st, 2016. The next hearing was scheduled for March 30th.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against journalist Can Dündar, who participated in the substitute editing-in-chief campaign for previously shut down Özgür Gündem Daily, and the newspaper's managing editor İnan Kızılkaya, was held at the Istanbul Second Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the public official. The next hearing was scheduled for March 30.
The trial of 19 lawyers continued at the Istanbul 13th Assize Court on charges of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations and making propaganda for a terrorist organization on the grounds of their press statements in front of the Istanbul Bar Association and the Istanbul Courthouse for those who lost their lives during the curfew declared in Cizre district of Şırnak, as well as in the October 10 Ankara train station massacre. The next hearing was scheduled for January 24th.
The latest hearing on the lawsuit filed against 8 students was held at Istanbul 60th Criminal Court of First Instance after they held a banner that stated, "Did you think the law number 6284 was yours?" in front of the rectorate building in response to the warrant protection Boğaziçi University's trustee rector Naci İnci demanded against the students who protested him within the Law on Protection of Family and Prevention of Violence Against Women number 6284. The prosecutor requested for the students to be acquitted on the charge of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations, whereas claimed that 4 of the students have damaged public property by throwing red paint on the rectorate building during the protest, claiming an imprisonment sentence against the students for up to 4 years. The hearing was adjourned to November 23.
The lawsuit filed against professional union members who protested the governorate's ban against the rally organised by the Confederation of Public Workers Unions in Antalya on May 29, 2016, was concluded with acquittal. The Antalya 18th Criminal Court of First Instance acquitted 48 people who were charged with violating the law on meetings and demonstrations number 2911.
Geldik yine sona. Ancak bu karanlık tabloya rağmen yine de umutla. Ülkedeki hak ve özgürlükler açısından yeni ve güzel şeyler anlatacağımız günlere kadar mücadele etmeye devam edeceğiz. Haftaya yeniden buluşmak ümidiyle.